Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. This is the Straight Out of DS podcast. Welcome to another episode. We've reached over 1,000 hours of view time, so that's crazy to me. Let's keep on going on. Almost 7,000 views or something like that. So keep it up. Keep sharing the videos and whatnot. And I also wanted to make one announcement, just for it's just something that is kind of becoming frustrating for me. If I hit you up or if you get a hold of me to come on the show and I message you back about a time, please don't just read my message and then not respond back to me, because all that does is add stress to my life, because I don't know if I should then reach back out to you because you've shown interest before, and then I feel like the bad guy because I'm reaching out to you a bunch or whatnot. So if I'm reaching out to you or if you're reaching out to me, please read the message and actually respond back to me. If you don't want to be on the show, that's fine. Just let me know that so I'm not over here wondering. Just wanted to air that out. A little bit of frustration. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just, it's just a suggestion that I'm making and asking you guys nicely. Mostly people don't do that, but I've just had a couple people that will read my messages and then not ever get back to me. So just wanted to make that announcement. Other than that, thank you guys so much for your support, and let's continue to keep on getting the word out there. I'd also like to do a moment of silence for the person still suffering with drugs, addiction, just thoughts in general. So on the count of 3, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
My name's Haywood Robinson, and I went to Spring Creek Lodge in, I think it was 99 to 2000, about 9 months.
Okay. And did you get transported, or did your parents bring you up there, or what was the deal?
No, I was transported. So I had been skipping school a lot, but I actually did go to school that day, and my aunt came and picked me up from school. Like, the vice principal came into my class and was like, Haywood, come with me. And I remember distinctly looking at my best friend and being like, this is why I don't come to school. And to the principal's office, and my aunt was there, and she was like, we haven't spent time together in a long time. I'm going to take you to lunch. And, it seemed kind of funny, but I was like, whatever, I can get out of school. I don't care. So we went to T.T.I. Fridays. And when we left there, we went back to her house, and I was like, why are we going to your house? And she was like, oh, I just got to pick something up there before I take you home. And when I got there, my dad's Explorer was in the driveway, and this van was out front, this red van. And there was this couple I'd never seen before. And when I pulled into the driveway, my aunt rolled down my window. My dad stuck his head in. He was like, these people are going to take you to a place where you're going to get better. And I was like, what? And I started screaming expletives, and I was just really pissed off. And this couple took me one arm each, and it was crazy. And I have to warn you that I have a lot of repressed memories. I don't remember a lot of things from Montana, but and that trip there is one of them. I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember when we it was we had to fly somewhere and stay overnight and then fly to Montana. And then when we stayed overnight, they had to push a bed up against the door so that I wouldn't run away.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, that was nuts.
Okay. And what years were you there?
99 and 2000. So over those 2 years for 9 months.
Okay. And when you got there, did they buddy you up with somebody? Did they go over the rules with you? Do you remember them going over rules with you? Did they buddy you up with somebody? What do you remember about your first few days?
I kind of block out a lot of this, but I do remember pulling up there, and that's when I see my what they packed. My parents packed for me for the first time. So granted, it's in I think October, November in Montana, and as you know, it can be like in the single digits at that point. So it's freezing cold. And so I remember that immediately. It was just like biting cold. And so I get out of the van and like they pull up to this trailer. I go into the trailer and there's this like heavyset woman in there. And it's funny, like I watched one of your past episodes with Tara, and she jogged my memory on a lot of stuff. So she reminded me about like it was her in-laws or ex-in-laws that and like I'm pretty sure it was her ex-mother-in-law that did my intake. And they like I'm pretty sure they made me like take all of my clothes off, like not right in front of them, but
yeah,
I definitely had to do that. And they like took a few things that were contraband. And then went through like what my parents had brought me, and they brought me like an 8th grade jacket, like ski jacket, and it was freezing there. And so then, you know, all that happened. And then I remember like walking up like the wood steps, because, you know, like all the buildings are wooden or whatever. And we were on the 2nd floor, and I remember walking in and it was like an out of body experience. Like I can see myself walking in to the cabin, just feeling immediately like I don't belong here. I mean, like I don't know what this place is about, but like I don't belong here. I don't know what's going on here. Like, and I think like the first couple of days are like a blur. Just not knowing what the hell is going on, like seeing people walking around like heel-toe line, like getting yelled at every 5 seconds for doing something wrong. Like I was looking the wrong way, or I was talking out of turn, or I was talking to the wrong level, or, you know, I grabbed a condiment, or, you know, like it just everything. I just got yelled at a lot. And it was jarring at first. Well, it was jarring the whole time, but especially when I first got there.
Yeah. How long after you got, they send you into your first seminar? Do you remember?
I'm sorry, I think my internet connection is a little shitty, but you said how long to my first seminar?
Yeah, after you got there.
I can't remember exactly, but it was like at least a month or two, because I remember being like a lot of people were talking with that jargon, you know, and being really confused for a long time. So it was a little bit longer.
Okay. And what was your experience of the seminars when you went through them?
Oh God, the seminars. So, and this is, and again, I'm really glad I watched Tara's episode because it was very eye-opening. But so the first time I went to Discovery, and actually, you know what? I may have gone to Discovery a little bit earlier on, but I had to choose out like really soon after I got there. So I think at one point they were talking about like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? In so many words, they asked that. And I told them this story of sexual assault. And it was not of a rape, but it was sexual assault, which is bad in and of itself. And I was basically told by, God, what's that guy's name? That facilitator. I can't remember his name, but like he did all of my seminars. But he and one of the junior staff people were just like ganging up on me, like that's not the worst thing that's happened to you. Like, we think that you're lying. Like, we don't think that this is the extent of what happened to you. So like the complete opposite of what Tara was talking about. Like, she had to go make sure that like somebody's rape story was true. Well, they were telling me that what happened to me was actually worse than what I was telling them. And I was like, what? I was so confused. And so apparently like my trauma wasn't bad enough for them. So, you know, I had to choose out. So I chose out. And then, so like the next time I went back, like I knew, okay, I have to tell them like a bigger story, like something worse happened to me. And this is like the beginning of some really like psychological like shit that I had to deal with for years and years later. Like, I ended up telling them about this very specific story about being raped. And I ended up talking about that specific trauma through the entire program, not just through the program, but then years after the program. Like, that's how much they like change the way your brain thinks, you know, like they have you so programmed, I guess. So it's like, I used to be really, really embarrassed telling this story. But now I know that it wasn't my fault. But it is still a little bit like, because not everybody understands like why I had to do that. And then once I began to believe it myself, how could I believe that for so long? But it is what it is. So that was my experience with the first seminar.
Okay. Do you feel like you got more negative or positive out of the seminars?
I think the immediate feeling out of there was a feeling of positivity, but it was short-lived. Like, it was I mean, like, I know that there's like psychological terms for it, but like everybody there, we were on like this kind of high, you know, like we hadn't eaten, we hadn't slept, like we're getting torn down emotionally. Like, and what they were trying to do, I believe, is to like tear us down and bring us back up again. But it was just very I don't know, I guess superficial in a way, because it wasn't lasting, and it wasn't, you know, the things that lasted for me were the activities that we had to do during the trainings that I repressed for a long time. Like, for example, in Discovery, since I told that story about being raped during the beating of the towels, you know, you had to wrap a towel up in duct tape and then like slam it on the floor. Well, they had like junior staff boys screaming in my ears, like, "You're a slut, you're a whore." Like, at one point, like pushing a pillow up against me to like simulate the pressure of my rapist, like reenact. Like, that's the kind of shit that like re-traumatized me. But then the immediate feeling right after the seminar was one of, oh, elation, you know? So it's really, it's hard to answer your question, because I know for a fact that it negatively affected me in detrimental ways, but I can't tell you that like at the time I wasn't feeling like I was high.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I actually went to Spring Creek too. I was there 22 months. I was the last person to graduate from there before it got shut down.
Oh my God. I'm sorry you had to go there.
It is what it is. Life goes on, but yeah, and thank you. Let's see. So did you graduate?
No, I didn't. I actually turned 18 in the program. And my mom, it never was like, I heard of a lot of situations where people were like, "Oh, you know, if you turn 18 and you leave, we'll give you like $20 in a bus pass," or something like that. And it never came to that with me. My parents were just like, "All right, well, if you just graduate the program, I mean, not the program, graduate school, you can come home." So I stayed, and I was in the 18-year-old program after I turned 18. And I had a little job in Thompson Falls. I worked as like a maid in that, like the only motel in Thompson Falls. And I actually forgot about that for a really long time. And I stayed in like the 18-year-old house, which was weird, because like we didn't have any running water, but like we still, huh?
Group home?
No, it was like a trailer on the property. So it's up where like the Hungry Horse was. Like, here's the Hungry Horse.
You're talking about the 18 and over program, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was like this trailer that the 18-year-old girl stayed in. But yeah, so I stayed there until I graduated high school.
Okay. Were you being paid for that work that you were doing?
No. And
Okay, so
that's the
free
first time
labor.
anyone's ever asked me that. And that's, I don't know who was, I guess that was just free labor. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just another way they get free labor out of out of people. So I'm not surprised you didn't get paid. I was just curious though. Let's see. Did you ever get sent to intervention or study hall? Any of that?
I did worksheets a couple of times, but I stayed pretty out of I stayed out of trouble for the most part. I used to hear sounds coming from the Hobbit, and I made sure to steer clear of
Like what
that.
sounds?
I mean, just blood curdling screams, you know? And then I had a couple of friends that were in my family that would go quite frequently. And I'm not going to say, I mean, like, I'm sure that sometimes they were just screaming just to scream. But I mean, some of those sounds, especially when I heard boys in there, was really kind of freaky. But I mean, I was never in there. I didn't see what was happening, but I just knew that I didn't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in intervention and study hall. I was the kid pretty much getting removed almost every day for my first year there until they threatened me with Jamaica, and they flat out told me that we'll just send you there, and then we'll just tell your parents after we send you there. We won't even ask your parents. We'll just send you there.
They threaten Jamaica all the time. All the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what got me to straighten out. So, but then I was like, no, I'll do what you say, because I heard they don't have child protection laws, and I heard all the horror stories about Jamaica. So,
Well, they actually had some girls from Jamaica come to Spring Creek, and so we heard a lot about Jamaica from those girls, and we're like,
yeah, there was a couple of boys too that came. That's usually how I heard. But yeah, I've had a few people on from Tranquility Bay and from High Impact. So, yeah. One of the most intense interviews I think I've ever done was from somebody who went to High Impact. Like that interview, I almost had to like stop in the middle of, because it was like so intense. Just because I'm an empath and I feel everything like super like crucially. So, but I didn't stop because it was her story. But I was like tempted to be like, whoa, can we like make this 2 parts? This is like really intense. But the word needs to get out there. People need to know about what goes on in these places. But let's see. So do you remember doing any like Spirit Month or anything like that?
Spirit Month?
Yeah, like have like different teams and you'd like do different events. It was kind of like a little like mini Olympics thing. They had at the fucking.
I don't remember it being called Spirit Month or exactly that. I do remember there being like little events or whatever. Like, okay, so Tara again. So, and I actually watched the interview with Tara today, so it's fresh in my memory. But Tara was talking about how her boyfriend at the time, Zach, had a family. He was like the family dad or whatever. And we did this like, I don't know, I think it was like this like 70s or 80s event thing where we had to like make up a dance, and I don't know. All I remember is that like she asked us to help like paint this mural for like, because they were doing a dance to Funky Town, I think, or no, Electric Avenue.
Okay.
And then we did a dance to Roller Coaster of Love, and I remember choreographing it. And literally, I'm not lying to you, like all of the stuff that I'm saying to you right now has been like a lot of memories have surfaced just after listening to Tara's interview. Because honestly, a lot of those like decent memories completely like, well, the decent and the shitty memories were, you know, kind of on lockdown for a very long time. After talking to, and you had Jenna Bulis on your program too, and after talking to her, she kind of helped me unlock some of the harder memories. But yeah, after listening to Tara, it's like, that's right, there was like at least a person that was there for the girls and to like try to make our lives a little bit better, and she definitely did, and I anyway, it's funny you bring up that like decent memory, because there were times like that were like kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. What was the hardest part about being in Spring Creek for you? If you had to narrow it down to like one thing, what do you think the hardest thing for you was?
Being on silence. I
What's
was
that?
on silence a lot. They called me an attention suck. So I got put on silence a lot. And as you know, but for those of like your viewers who may not know, like when you're put on silence, it's not just like, okay, don't talk. It's like no one can look at you, no one can acknowledge you. You can't look at anyone else. Like you're literally invisible. And it is like, especially for
Hold on a second. There was like a sound in the background, like a humming sound when you were talking. Do you know what that might be?
it might have been my candle.
Okay.
Oh, I just blew it out. Can you still hear it?
Go ahead and keep talking.
Okay, can you hear it now?
A little bit. It's weird. It's weird. It's like it might. It's a little weird. Okay, just keep going. Just keep going. If I need to, I'll edit it out. If I need to,
Okay, sorry about that. I don't really know what it could be.
No, it's fine.
But no, so yeah, like being on silence, no one can acknowledge you, no one can look at you, you can't look at anyone else. Like, and when you're a teenager, like your brain's still developing. And to be completely ignored in that way, and to not be able to communicate with anybody for like days at a time, it's detrimental to the growth of your brain. Like I've done a lot of research on it, and to this day, like I cannot stand being shushed. I also hate lines, but I think that's like most of the people in the world. But I think my reasons are a little bit different. But yeah, if I had to narrow down like the worst part, I mean, in the moment, the worst part would be being put on silence. Like, are there things that like affected me down the road? Like, absolutely. But like in the moment, it was the being put on silence all the time.
Yeah. How long after you got there do you remember till you got your first phone call?
A while.
Because when I was there, they were doing like 60 days, usually, unless they didn't like you were acting out. But I went there a long time after you were there, so that's why I'm kind of asking
I
what.
think I had to wait until I got level 3, and you can't get on level 3 until after focus, right?
Yeah.
So it was like months. What a long time.
Yeah.
Without talking to my parents. And when I finally did, like I got to talk to them. That was great, whatever. It was monitored and I couldn't say shit. So it was what it was. But the next time I got a phone call, I had lost points and I was no longer on level 3, but like they came and got me and they're like, you have a phone call. And like that only happens when something like really bad happened at home. I was like, oh, shit. So I went to, I don't even remember, I guess we went to our case manager's office, I think, for that. And it was my dad on the phone. He was like, Haywood, I just want to let you know that we love you very much. I'm like, okay, get to it. And he was like, you know, your mom and I are splitting up. And then he later, and so like that was really, really like terrible to hear over the phone so many miles away, because I live in South Carolina. That's where I'm from. So I was on the other side of the country. And then he like sent a letter like telling me the reasoning for it all, which was really hard to read. So like a lot of things happened there, especially that were like life-changing, that there was nothing I could do about it. I already and think about on top of that, being that young, I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, I did this. Like I broke my parents up. Like
I can totally relate because mine is a little different though. right before I was about to graduate, my parents made a special trip up there just to tell me that they were going to get divorced. After telling me my entire life that I'd never have to worry about that. But they came up and they're like, oh yeah, congratulations on graduating, but you're going to have to now contend with the fact that we're getting divorced. And so I went back to my dad, pretty much crying every day for like about a year or so. And like just fucking tore his heart out because they were together for like over 30 years.
Oh my God.
And so that happened to me too, but that's crazy that happened to you. It's crazy.
At least you made the trip there. I mean, you're from Seattle, right? Or at least in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's a little bit shorter of a trip for them, but still, I could have really used an in-person.
Yeah, that's hella shitty to find out over the phone. So that was the second phone call you got?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever make it to PC1?
No.
Okay.
As far as I got was through Focus that I remember.
Okay. What do you remember about them telling people about runners? What do you remember them telling people about runners? Like anything like what happens in the woods stays in the woods. Do you remember any runners that ran? What do you remember about them?
I don't remember any runners. I do remember thinking that it was so strange. This was the other thing I got in trouble for all the time, was looking out the window. You weren't allowed to look out the window.
Yeah, run plans.
Yeah. Like, I thought that was so crazy. That, and like, you're only allowed to wear 2 layers of clothes when it's like in single digits.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't hear, I think there was like a story of like a guy that ran at one point, but like he was like, he didn't have shoes, and he like, I think he was gone for like maybe a day, and then they found him, and I'm not sure if that was during my stay or if it was just like legend from like right before I got there or something. But they made it pretty clear that like we're in the middle of nowhere. Like, you can run all you want, but you're not going anywhere. Like, basically, I don't remember them saying like, you're either going to die or we'll find you, but that was basically the message that I got.
Yeah. Let's see. You never got put on an upper level experience or anything like that?
No, I actually was. So when I was in the 18-year-old program, you were like automatically like an upper level. So I'm like, I got to level 3, and then I was like, I think like when I was there anyway, I think once you go to level 3, like it was just regular level 3. But then when I turned 18, I got to go to the 18-year-old program. So that was automatically like a upper level, but I don't remember ever like being with families. So I don't think I got, and again, honestly, I could have, and I just don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I didn't get put with families.
Okay.
I think I just like focused on my school at that point, and then that job.
Okay. Do you remember them were they doing Trail of Lights ceremony when you were there?
Is that the
crowd surfing thing when people graduate?
I vaguely remember that. I think I'm getting that confused with something else though. I was gonna say the gravel pit. The gravel pit is where I sprained my ankle, and they did nothing about it. Actually, I think I twisted it because I later on ended up spraining my ankle a bunch in life. That was really fucked up. But no, I don't. I vaguely remember the Trail of Lights. I don't have a big memory of it though.
Okay, and what would they make you do in the rock pit?
And I don't have a whole lot of memory of that either, but I just remember it was like like an obstacle course, and like having to be in the bottom of this like gravel pit and having to run up it for whatever, God knows what reason. And I remember like hurting myself, my ankle, and then like being yelled at a lot and being told to like keep going. Yeah, and I was down for the count for a couple days after that. But it's like, for some strange reason, when you did it there, they had this reasoning for it. Like the kind of shit that they did that like in the moment we were like, okay, I don't enjoy this, but like this is for the greater good or whatever. And then they make you feel all high about it. But like looking back, like stuff like that, and then stuff like when Cameron, I think, yeah, it was Cameron, would like love to wake everybody up in the middle of the night with like band music and like flip mattresses and like go crazy. Like that's another reason I think that I'm such a light sleeper. And I get spooked really easily just because they did that. You know, they're always like trying to surprise you and freak you out and like push you to your limits. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing. How's your relationship with your parents? Do you still talk to your parents? Have you forgiven them for it? Have you talked to them about it?
Yes, I have forgiven them. They have apologized profusely. They didn't know what they were getting me into. The marketing for these programs was phenomenal. It was like, yeah, she's gonna go ride on a horse in the middle of a pasture in Montana or whatever. I will say after they went to Florida to do the Discovery seminar, and I haven't even told them this yet, but like I am a little disturbed by the fact that I wasn't pulled immediately after that, because then again, you know, when I first went through a seminar all the way, like I was telling you, like I had that like high or whatever, but like, so maybe that's the reason why they didn't. I don't know. But yeah, and like I wrote a book over quarantine, and I aired everything out. Like everything that I remembered anyway. So my parents, we've definitely made amends, and they were cool with me like airing out all the dirty laundry. So, well, I don't know if they were cool with it, but they gave me their blessing. So we're good now.
That's good. What do you think the program did more harm or more good for you?
Harm.
Why? Okay, why?
Um,
And what specifically?
I mean, I think that the whole whatever happened to you or happens to you is 100% your fault. Like you create everything for yourself. Like you're the reason that anything bad happens to you. Like that is a huge, like that's the core of what they tell you in those seminars. And I, to this day, have a very hard time not thinking that like everything bad that happens to me is 100% my fault all the time. Like I'm the most fucking accountable person you'll ever meet, and I'm overly so. Like, you know, and I absolutely agree that you need to be accountable for things, 100%. But there's certain things that, you know, you got to give yourself grace for stuff. You know, you can't just constantly blame yourself and beat yourself up all the time, and ask yourself, how did you create this for yourself? Well, you know, it's life. Life happens, but you need to move on and give yourself grace. And I just don't think they taught that at the program at all. In fact, they did the opposite. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think also the, you know, telling me that I was a liar and an attention suck and being put on silence, like all of that was like, you know, just a recipe for disaster for me. It just really affected the way I felt about myself for the rest of my life, and the rest 20 some odd years, even now.
Yeah. Did you make a lot of good or lasting relationships there, like friendships?
I did. I had really dear friends there. I've lost touch with them, but I've reconnected with some. You know, through the whole the breaking code silence thing, I've kind of stepped away from all of that. But when it first, you know, took hold, I reconnected with Jenna, and she was there at the same time I was. We were in different families, but I remember her. And there was another girl, Leah, she actually came and visited me shortly afterwards. That I went kind of back to my same old shit, like not long after I got back. So that was kind of a weird reunion. But other than that, oh, and there was this other girl, Katie, who ended up working for like, I don't know, some big like record company, and she sent me like a box of all these like cool CDs, like back in the early 2000s. So that was cool. But other than that, no, I haven't really kept in touch with anybody.
Okay, yeah, Jen is a good person. Jen is a really good friend of mine. Yeah. Shout out to Gianna. Let's see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your research. You've done research, right?
I mean, what kind of research?
Well, didn't you tell me that you've done like, or didn't you tell me when you first hit me up that you did your research? Oh, no, you wrote a book. Okay, let's talk about the book you wrote. Let's talk about the book you wrote.
Yeah, I actually, so before I got sent to Montana, I started experiencing symptoms of mental illness, but that was not spoken of at the time. It was 90s, early 2000s. No one really talked about that. So instead of getting me, mental health help, my parents sent me to Montana. I wasn't diagnosed with bipolar until like 5 years ago. So I went, so whatever symptoms I was experiencing before Montana basically just exacerbated all of that. And then it basically took my feelings of worthlessness, because when you're depressed, you feel like you're lazy, or you feel like you're worthless because you can't get out of bed, you don't want to do things, you're unmotivated. So compound those feelings with the feelings you got from Montana that this is all your fault, you're a bad person. So that just made things 10 times worse. And then obviously there's the mania as well. So I just went the next like 25 years of my life just making bad decision after bad decision, and not knowing. I just thought I was a shitty person, basically. And then when I got diagnosed with bipolar, it just was like a light switch went off. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not a shitty person. I just am suffering from mental illness and have been for like 25 years. So it was the diagnosis plus finding Jenna and the Breaking Code Silence group and recognizing that I also suffer from PTSD and that I was also experiencing those symptoms, and I wasn't alone. Like they were experiencing that too. And they also were traumatized by this. And like we had so many, like there's so many survivors that have so many similar life experiences, like just years after the program. And it was just very validating. So it was really after talking to Jenna, and when she created her, and I think it was Chelsea, created Breaking Code Silence, it made me just feel incredibly validated. So I was like, I want to do this for other people. Like I want to find a way to make other people realize they're not alone, that there's other people out here that are suffering from mental illness. There's other people out here that are suffering from CPTSD. There's other people out here that have gone through like the troubled teen industry, which is a $1 billion industry, still screwing children up to this day. You're not alone. And I think that validation is the biggest reason that I was able to turn my life around. So that's why I wrote the book. I wrote it over quarantine, actually, pretty quickly. And then I self-published. And I travel sometimes to different like guidance counselor conventions and behavioral alliance conventions to talk to, like, you know, guidance counselors, teachers, therapists, whatever, especially ones who deal with teenagers and children, because I think it's so important to be diagnosed early on so that you can get the mental health help that you need. Because if I had gotten the mental health help that I needed instead of being sent to Montana, like, my life would have been completely different.
For sure. What's the name of the book?
It's called Chasing Pleasure with Pain.
Okay.
Kind of a nod to bipolar.
Okay. I have bipolar too, so I can definitely relate. Let's see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, like, after you got out of the program, how was reintegrating into society? What was the hardest part for you when you got out? For me, it's always waiting for the other shoe to drop, trust issues, and just always looking over my shoulder and stuff like that.
That is so funny that you say waiting on the other shoe to drop. But that is, and I didn't realize until you just said that, that may be something from the program, but I do always, I'm never, like, satisfied with being, like, stable or happy, because I'm always like, something else is gonna happen. Like, I can't just be happy where I am. I can't be content because I'm always afraid that the other shoe is going to drop. And that is actually something I work on in therapy. But I think when I first got back, God, I think it was just knowing how to be a person again. Like, you know, I felt like asking for things all the time, you know, like I had to ask to do everything. So I definitely feel like that was weird. Also, like, the friends that I had before I went to Montana, like, actually one of those friends, a couple of those friends actually are still, especially one is one of my best friends to this day. So I couldn't talk to her though, but there were other friends that, like, my mom approved of from, like, a couple years before I went to the program. So, like, she tried to, like, push me in that direction, and it was so basically I was living a life that wasn't mine, you know, like, I was having to pretend to be okay with this, like, contrived life. And finally my mom was, you know, open to talking to a couple of my older friends, and realized that, you know, it wasn't their fault. And I ended up going to college at the College of Charleston, but I had to, like, I stayed home for the first year at College of Charleston, which is weird for, like, a freshman to stay at their parents' house, I guess. Like, that was hard. But yeah, I think it was just, like, being reintroduced to, like, normal, probably the hardest part.
Okay. And let's see, did you ever struggle with any, like, drug addiction or anything after the program?
Not drug addiction. I definitely, when I'm not medicated, I was self-medicating with alcohol. And when I was, like, in food and beverage, I definitely did cocaine, and I was self-medicating for sure. But now that I'm medicated, and when I was medicated on depression medication before, because I was diagnosed with depression for a while, just not bipolar. So when I was medicated with depression medication, I was fine. But then when I became manic, you know, I would self-medicate again with, like, alcohol. So yeah, short story long. Yes, I did struggle with alcohol a bit.
Let's see. So how are you nowadays? How are you doing nowadays?
I still struggle with my mental health. I am at a great place because I have a great support system. I have a great support system in my mother. And I also, my dad and I are actually really close now too. And I'm very open with my mom, especially when, like, for instance, I told her today, Mom, I'm watching this episode that he did with one of the staff members, and it's bringing up a lot. And then I'm talking to him later. So this is going to be a really tough day for me. And I've been pretty nervous about this all day. But she is like going to be waiting by the phone when I'm done here to talk to me about all the emotions it brought up or whatever. But how I'm doing is great. I think that I'm a lot harder on myself than other people would be, but I have a great job. I have my own apartment. I have an awesome dog. Her name's Outta. And I'm single and I'm 39 and I give myself a hard time for that. But I work really hard just to stay stable and to do the best I can. But it's a struggle. Mental illness sucks, man.
Yeah, it does. For sure, I can definitely relate. Okay, if you could go back in a time, or hold on, one more question before that. When you were in the program, did they try and load you up with a bunch of medications? Did they put you on a bunch of medications? Because for a lot of people, I know that they flood under them with medication.
No.
Okay. Okay.
They didn't give me any mental health help either. They did give me a therapist, but that I don't really remember at all. And unfortunately, and I am not inserting myself into this narrative whatsoever, so I'm not even going to mention his name because of that, but he has been accused of being inappropriate sexually with his, I guess, clients or whatever that were there. And I don't remember a single session with him. So I can't tell you one way or the other, but I almost kind of wish for that to stay repressed. So
for sure, I completely understand. Okay, if you could go back in a time machine and not go through the program, would you do it, and why?
Yes, I would definitely not do. Well, in a perfect world, I'd not do it, and I'd have some sort of note to be able to tell my parents she needs mental health help. Because I definitely think if there's no intervention, there's a problem. Like, I would not be okay. Like, because I was having a mental health crisis when I got sent away. So yeah, I would definitely not go because all it did was exacerbate my symptoms, my illness, and everything I was going through, and made my life even harder than it would have been otherwise.
Okay. And is it your belief that these places should be, should or even could be regulated at this point, or do you believe that they should all just be shut down, the ones that are still open?
They need to be shut down because they're not. Well, I don't know. I don't think that they're able to be reformed, honestly. Like, at this point, sure, if they could be reformed and, everyone, they could clear house and only hire people that have credentials, that are certified in the mental health profession, not just that MAT training or whatever, because that's bullshit. Then sure, because I definitely think there's a need for some sort of intervention for people who are struggling with mental health or addiction or, to any extent that their parents apparently are not able to help them. But it what's happening in it, it's just not it.
I completely agree. I want a couple more questions. Are you part of the Straight Outta BS podcast group yet on Facebook?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll send you a request for that. I post updates for the group, and you can chat with people about the podcast and about things like that. I also have a Discord. I'll send you the link for that has a bunch of topics and stuff related to the podcast. And I'll send you links to anything else that I have regarding the podcast. I want you to feel welcome in the community. So, with that being said, is there anything else that you have to say about your experience, or that you might tell a parent or that's thinking about sending their child to a program like this? What do you think? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I speak to parents of children that struggle with mental health. It used to be frequently, but I haven't gone in a while. But I definitely think you need to look at alternative options. I think that unfortunately the mental health crisis in our country is not, we haven't caught up to that, and we don't have good intervention for that. But there are resources, go to your local NAMI organization, or, there's the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. There's resources out there. So before you make the jump to a troubled teen industry program, look at the other resources that are out there, because they are there.
Yeah, that's very good. I had forgotten about the NAMI. I'm gonna actually link that in my in my video as well. So that's gonna become part of my description. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I want to remind anybody that's watched this far in the video, please don't forget to like the video. It really helps out with the algorithms. Leave a comment, say hi, say who you are, where you went, all of that. Engage in the conversation in the comments. It's always fun. And just keep on supporting the podcast in any way you guys can. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.